General Erich Georg Anton von Falkenhayn was the chief of the German General Staff during the First World War from September 1914 until the 29th of August, 1916. He was removed in the late summer of 1916 after the failure at the Battle of Verdun, the opening of the Allied offensive on the Somme, the Brusilov Offensive, and the entry of Romania into the war. He was later given important field commands in Romania and Syria. His reputation as a war leader was attacked in Germany during and after the war, especially by the faction which supported Hindenburg. Falkenhayn held that Germany could not win the war by a decisive battle but would have to reach a compromise peace. His enemies said he lacked the resolve necessary to win a decisive victory. Falkenhayn's relations with the Chancellor Bethmann Hollweg were troubled and undercut Falkenhayn's plans. Early life. Falkenhayn was born in Berg-Belchau near Gradens, West Prussia, to Fedor von Falkenhayn and Franziska von Falkenhayn and Eqt von Rosenberg. His brother Arthur became tutor of Crown Prince Wilhelm, while Eugen became a Prussian general of cavalry. His only sister Olga von Falkenhayn was the mother of Field Marshal Fedor von Bock. Becoming a cadet at the age of 11, he joined the army in 1880. He served as an infantry and staff officer and became a career soldier. In 1886, Falkenhayn married Ida Selkman, with whom he had 2 children, a son Fritz Georg Adalbert von Falkenhayn, born in 1890, and a daughter Erika Carola Olga von Falkenhayn, born in 1904 and married to Henning von Treschow. Between 1896 and 1903, Falkenhayn served in King China on leave for several years and saw action during the Boxer Rebellion. He also spent time in Manchuria and Korea. Afterwards, the army posted him to Brunswick, Metz and Magdeburg. He became a major general in 1912. In 1913 he became Prussian Minister of War, in which capacity he was involved at the beginning of World War I, when the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria in Sarajevo took place. Like most German military leaders, he did not expect a great European war, but he soon embraced the idea and joined with others pushing for Kaiser Wilhelm II to declare war. Chief of Staff Falkenhayn succeeded Helmut von Moltke the Younger as chief of the Oberstheeresleitung after the First Battle of the Marne on 14 September 1914. Falkenhayn attempted to outflank the British and French in the race to the sea, a series of engagements throughout northern France and Belgium in which each side made reciprocal attempts to turn the other's flank, until they reached the North Sea and had no more room for maneuver. The British and French eventually stopped the German advance at the First Battle of Ypres. Falkenhayn preferred an offensive strategy on the Western Front, while conducting a limited campaign in the East. He hoped that Russia would accept a separate armistice more easily if it were not humiliated too much. This brought him into conflict with Paul von Hindenburg and Erich Ludendorff, who favored massive offensives in the East. Eventually, in the hope that either a massive slaughter would lead Europe's political leaders to consider ending the war or that losses would be less harmful for Germany than for France, Falkenhayn staged a battle of attrition, as claimed in his post-war memoirs, in the Battle of Verdun in early 1916. Although more than 250,000 soldiers eventually died and Falkenhayn was sometimes called the Blood Miller of Verdun, neither side's resolve was lessened. Contrary to Falkenhayn's assumptions, the French were able to limit casualties in the divisions sent to Verdun. General Philippe Pétain kept the divisions in the line at Verdun until casualties reached 50% of the infantry and then relieved them. The procession of divisions back and forth was analogous to the operation of a noria, a type of water wheel that continuously lifts water and empties it into a trough. After the relative failure at Verdun, coupled with reverses on the Eastern Front, the beginning of the Anglo-French offensive on the Somme and the intrigues of Hindenburg and Ludendorff, Falkenhayn was replaced as Chief of Staff by Hindenburg. Later career. Falkenhayn then assumed command of the 9th Army in Transylvania, and in August launched a joint offensive against Romania with August von Mackensen. Falkenhayn's forces captured the Romanian capital of Bucharest in under 4 months, with help of troops from all Central Powers against the poorly trained, equipped and inexperienced Romanian army, which had to defend a 1,600 kilometers front, the longest in Europe. Following the success, Falkenhayn went to take military command in Ottoman Palestine. Given the rank of Mushir in the Ottoman army, he was assigned to command the Yildirim army group. He eventually failed to prevent the British under General Edmund Allenby from conquering Jerusalem in December 1917. In February 1918, Falkenhayn became commander of the 10th Army in Belarus, where he witnessed the end of the war. Post-war, in 1919, he retired from the army and withdrew to his estate, where he wrote his autobiography and several books on war and strategy. His war memoirs were translated into English as The German General Staff and Its Critical Decisions, 1914 to 1916. With the benefit of hindsight, he remarked that the German declarations of war on Russia and France in 1914 were justifiable but overly hasty and unnecessary. Falkenhayn died in 1922 at Schloss Lindstedt, near Potsdam. Assessment. Falkenhayn in many ways typified the Prussian generals, a militarist in the literal sense. He had undeniable political and military competence but showed contempt toward democracy and the representative Reichstag. He addressed the Reichstag in 1914 as follows: "Only through the fact that the Prussian army is removed by the constitution from the party struggle and the influence of ambitious party leaders has it become what it is, the secure defensive peace at home and abroad." Militarily, Falkenhayn had a mixed record. His offensive at Verdun proved a strategic failure. During the campaign against Romania in 1916, Falkenhayn demonstrated considerable skill in command of the German 9th Army, driving the Romanians from Transylvania, breaking through the southern Carpathians and forcing the shattered Romanian forces northeast into Moldavia. His defense of Palestine in 1917 was also a failure, but his forces, overwhelmingly Ottoman in composition, were outnumbered and outclassed and casualties were fairly equal. Winston Churchill considered him to be the ablest by far of the German generals in World War I. We also ranked him near the top of the German commanders, just below Hindenburg and Ludendorff. Foley wrote that Germany's enemies were far more able to apply a strategy of attrition, because they had greater amounts of manpower, industry and economic control over the world, resorting to many of the methods used by Falkenhayn in Russia in 1915 and France in 1916. As the cost of fighting the war increased, the war aims of the Entente expanded, to include the overthrow of the political elites of the Central Powers and the ability to dictate peace to a comprehensively defeated enemy, which was achieved by a strategy of attrition. All sources portray Falkenhayn as a loyal, honest and punctilious friend and superior. His positive legacy is his conduct during the war in Palestine in 1917. His biographer Holger Afflerbach wrote, "An inhuman excess against the Jews in Palestine was prevented only by Falkenhayn's conduct, which against the background of the German history of the 20th century has a special meaning, and one that distinguishes Falkenhayn." Decorations and awards. Order of the Black Eagle. Paula Merit Oak Leaves. Iron Cross Second Class First Class. Commander of the Military Order of Max Joseph. Knight Grand Cross of the Order of Military Merit with Swords. Knight of the Military Order of St. Henry. Gold Military Merit Medal.